Get their seats, please. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Just a note for those who are new here, we do not pass a collection plate, but there is a box down by the Welcome Center where you can put your tithes and offerings. If you're on church council, remember there is a meeting next Sunday after service. So we've moved the normal schedule from second Sunday to the third Sunday for this month. There's a youth community choir for middle and high school age kids on Monday from 7 to 8. If you want details on that, see Debbie Honecker sitting over there. She will straighten you out on that one. Redefine Youth Support Dinner, March 11th. That's a Wednesday at 6 p.m. They're going to have barbecue chicken and macaroni and cheese. The proceeds from that go to fund the Redefine Youth Camp this summer. It's $3 a plate or $10 for a family. From God's Word this morning, Psalm 66 and verse 5, he says, "Come and see the works of God. How awesome are his deeds to the sons of men." So let's bow for a word of prayer. Father God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you, Father God, for the wondrous works that you do for us. I thank you for the blessings, Father. And thank you mainly for Jesus, in whom we have redemption and forgiveness of sins through his blood. I thank you, Father God, for your presence here this morning. I just pray, Lord, that your spirit would flow through this place and just touch each one of us. I pray, Father, that you would help us to leave behind the things that we drug in here with us this morning. Help us to put our focus totally on you and not on ourselves or on the things that is going on around us. Lord, you are the most important thing in the world. Help us to keep that right in the front of our minds. So, Father, we give you all the glory, we give you all the praise, and we pray in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Good morning, everybody. So if every once in a while I look like I have no clue what the words are, it's because my screen is blocked and I can't see. So I'll be singing Watermelon all morning. Watermelon. Lord, we just come to you this morning. We just ask you to help us to put aside all the cares of the world, all of our thoughts and all of our worries, and for the few minutes help us to not care about who's behind us or who's in front of us or who's looking at us weird. Lord, help us to focus upon you and be in your presence so that you can do your work in us, God.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. The shame no longer has a place to hide, and I am not a captive to the lie. And I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. No, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There is power. There is power that can break off every chain. There is power that can empty out the grave. There is resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. There is power that can break off every chain. There is power that can empty out a grave. There is resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Standing in your love, God. There is power that can break off every chain. There is power that can empty out a grave. There is resurrection power that can save. There is power in your name. Power in your name. There is power that can break off every chain. There is power that can empty out a grave. There is resurrection power that can save. There is power in your name. Power in your name. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. 'Cause look where I'm standing. And bye bye fear, you can't stay here. 'Cause look where I'm standing. And bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing in his love. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. 'Cause look where I'm standing. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing in his love. I'm standing in his love. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing. Bye bye fear, you can't stay here. Look where I'm standing in his love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Woo. All right, some of you haven't heard this next song in years. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see. Evan, please turn the guitars up. 'Cause I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. 'Cause I want to see you. Yes, I want to see you. To see you high. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. High and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you, God. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. Yes, I want to see you. See high. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy. To see you high, to see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Come on, sing holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see. I want to see you, God.
so beautiful, God. So glorious, God. I want to see you, God. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you.
Slow down, take time, breathe in, he said. He'll reveal what's to come. The thoughts in his mind, always higher than mine. He'll reveal all to come. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. Oh. Sing praise, my soul. Find strength in joy. Let his words lead you on. Do not forget his great faithfulness. Finish all he's begun. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. And you who holds the stars in the
He's
waiting.
in the waiting.
Hold on to your
Hold on.
as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds.
He's never failing. He's never failing.
Miracles happen. On Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes
On Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. Miracles happen when I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. When I fix my eyes on Jesus Christ.
So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. Take courage, you're all we need, Jesus.
Steadfast my soul.
You're all we need.
He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
Jesus. Your will be done in this place today, God. Your kingdom come. Let no flesh glory in your presence, God. Not our pride, not our desire for experience, not our desire for self-importance. Just in your presence, with nothing to prove. Nothing to prove at all. Jesus. Your will be done, God. Your kingdom come. Your kingdom come, God. Your will be done. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
And take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's He's never failing.
Never failing.
He's never failing. So take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing.
He's never failing.
He's never failing.
He's never failing.
Take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. In the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing.
And you who holds the stars, you calls them each by name, will surely keep your promise to me, and I will rise in your victory. You hold the stars. And you who holds the stars, you call them each by name, will surely keep your promise to me, and I will rise in your victory. Take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. Take courage, my heart, to stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. He's in the waiting. Hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing. He's never failing. He's never failing. He's never failing.
Take courage, my heart. Stay steadfast, my soul. He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
He's in the waiting.
And hold on to your hope as your triumph unfolds. He's never failing.
He's never failing.
He's never failing.
Lord, we worship you with all that we are. All that we are, we give you our praise. You're such a gracious God to reach down and touch our hearts and our minds, to dwell with us and inside of us, to show us your ways and your truth. Your will be done, your kingdom come, God. In Jesus' name. Turn around and shake somebody's hand and tell them you love them. morning. How are you?
No one ever comes up here and says good morning to you. So good morning.
That's because they're on the microphone. It's nice to see all of you today. Oh my gosh, Coach McCants is here.
Good morning, Mike.
I love you too. Good morning, buddy. It's nice to see all of you at church this morning. We'll just wait till the worship team gets back in the room. We don't want them to miss out on anything. Making a point. Ron, can you make sure they find their way back after they go to the bathroom or whatever? We'll just wait. It's nice to see all of you this morning. Got some visitors this morning. Got some faces we haven't seen for a while. It's nice to see y'all. Oh, my pointer is working this morning. That's exciting. Yeah, this is weird. We're having some issues, and this morning we had serious sound issues because this is good because it absorbs the sound, but now we can't hear certain things up on the stage, and it's a little crazy. So it's a lot of fun trying to figure that one out, huh? So, pardon? It's Josh's fault? That's because he's getting married today. Where's Krissa? She what? Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, she's not in the room, so say a prayer for Tatiana. Her father died this week, and he was not an old man. It wasn't not expected, but it don't matter. And so say a prayer for her. She's like, is it okay? I don't want to play this morning because I don't know what I'll do. And I said, who cares what you do? Right? So it's a blessing. So just say a prayer for her. She wasn't trying to draw attention to herself. She just, God's moving in her life and he's comforting her. So it's awesome. Awesome what God's doing. So, oh no, now I can't even see my notes up there. We gotta, I think we're gonna leave this up, but we gotta move that down here so I can see it because I can't see it. But all right, so we're gonna continue on in this series we're doing on the Promised Land, and I want to go through this real quick. And this is gonna be a relatively, for those of you who don't know, Josh is getting married this afternoon or this evening to the Princess Krissa, and many of us are very excited about this because we get to give her to Josh. And you all need to pray for Josh and pray for Krissa because although we think Josh is getting a handful, Karissa's getting 2 handfuls. Anyways, so yeah. So their wedding today is here at 7 o'clock. You're all invited, and I don't care if Krissa invited you or not. You're still invited because she's not in charge. Okay. She's trying to learn that, so it's going to be tough for her, so we'll just help her out. We'll help her out. Everybody's invited. So we're going to continue our Bible series on the Promised Land, and there's 3 things that we need to get out of this series, and right now we're on obey, okay? The first is believe, and we have to believe, and we talked about how Caleb went over to the land and he believed, and so did the other 10. Caleb and Joshua believed, and so did the other 10. They believed too, but then they began to have their understanding, and they began to think about it, and they began to worry about it, and they began to fret about it, and they began to figure it out, and that led to disobedience and a lack of ability to obey. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And that's where we're at today. We're talking about this. We believe, but then we have this inability to obey because our understanding gets in the way. I want to read this to you. So for those of you that are just coming in on this series and you you're like, Pastor Mike's not reading the Bible. Well, I could put a bunch of Bible verses up there and then we'd be here till 1:30. So I don't do that. But I do want to read you this part. This is where Caleb and Joshua and the other 10 come back. And this is where Caleb is saying, give me my land, at the end of the wilderness journey, and he's waited around forever. And he says, remember what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, about you and me when we were in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land of Canaan. And I returned and gave an honest report, but my brothers who went with me, I'm getting serious feedback, went with me, frightened the people from entering the promised land. For my part, I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. So that day Moses solemnly promised me, the land of Canaan on which you were just walking will be your grant of land, and that of your descendants forever, because you wholeheartedly followed the Lord your God. Now, as you can see, the Lord has kept me alive and well, as he promised, for all these 45 years, since Moses made this promise, even while Israel wandered in the wilderness. Today I am 85 years old. I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on that journey, and I can still travel and fight as well as I could then. So give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. We're still not going to get to ask. We're going to get to ask maybe next week. I want to talk a little bit more about obey. I want to talk about how we have a hard time obeying. We believe, right? We believe, and some would say, well, if you believed more, you'd obey. Well, I believe. I know God can do anything. But yet, we still struggle with obedience. And so today what I want to do is continue something I dropped on your heads on Wednesday night in small group. Right at the end of the Bible study on Wednesday night, I threw out this little diagram and I said that God creates circumstances for us to love him. And as a matter of fact, the children of Israel coming out of Egypt and going to the promised land and then spying out the land, that was God creating an opportunity for the children of Israel to display their love for God. But they failed. And so I want to push in on this a little bit further, and I want to make sure that we all understand this. This is a really big deal. Because how many of you guys have ever wondered why God lets this stuff happen, right? Why can't God just take away all the bad options and only leave me with the good options, right? And then I won't have to choose, and then I won't have this fight within myself. The reason God is not taking away all the bad options, and the reason why God is creating this environment where you have to choose to love him, is because he wants to give you that opportunity. If God wanted to, he could make you love him. But then would it be love? Anybody here creepy? Any of you a creeper, weirdo, and you at one point you captured some woman or man and you made them love you? And when they didn't want to love you, you put them in a cage and you made them. Anybody like that here? Raise your hand. Christian's like, I did it with a kitty once, you know. Look, they love me. The cat's like, you know. And some of you pray to God that he would do that to you. Anybody ever prayed to God that he would take away all the options and make you love him? But that's not love. That's not God. God ain't going to do that. God, in his infinite wisdom and awesomeness, he created you and gave you a choice and freedom. And now he's creating opportunities for you and I to love him, to display, to practice, to carry out our love for him. That's what I want to talk to you about this morning. The one thing we pointed out last week was, what was the difference about the other spies from Caleb and Joshua? And the answer is they decided to understand what they saw apart from God's promise. okay? And this is where we start this journey. This is where we start this opportunity for God to love us. How many of you wish that God would take away your understanding? He would take away the feelings that draw you away from him. How many of you think that if you were spiritual enough, you wouldn't have those feelings? Anybody? Oh, come on now, be honest. If you were spiritual enough, you wouldn't have those feelings that draw you away from God. And the thing is that's not how God works. As a matter of fact, God wants you to choose to love him in the middle of those feelings. So we could all sit here and be critical of those 10 spies, but the reality of it is we're all them. There's not a one of us that was Joshua and Caleb. Not a one. We strive and we try to be like Joshua and Caleb, but we've all been where God showed us the promise. He took us to the promised land, and when we were there, we argued with him about whether he could do it or not. And then we chose fear instead of obedience. Right? So that's what I want to talk about. The little Bible verse here, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So one of the most important things you have to remember in this little diagram we're going to show you today, and we're going to talk about, is that your understanding is your enemy. I get a kick out of people who study the Word so they can have enough understanding. See, I just made a bunch of theologian Christians angry. I didn't say you shouldn't study the Word. I said don't study it to gain understanding. Well, what would I study the Word for? To know God. Because there's never going to be a time where you're going to ever take that understanding that you're studying the Word for and use it. Don't you dare trust in your understanding. Anybody ever been deceived by your understanding? Now, here's a better one. This isn't a rhetorical question. So for some of you Christians that this might be your first time here, half the room are people who do not believe. Half this room are people who, well, they say they believe, like, I'm going to heaven, but they don't believe. In other words, they're not living their life as a disciple of Christ. And so when I ask questions, I really want you to raise your hand and answer them. Why? Because I want you to be a witness to them of who God is. Don't be selfish. Okay? God's trying to make you a witness in this room. All right? So how many of us, we've been deceived by our own understanding? Yes? Okay? Now, here's the next question. How many of you have been deceived by your understanding that stemmed from your Bible knowledge? How many of you realize that Satan uses the Bible to deceive us? Well, you're like, whoa, time out, Pastor Mike. No, you understand. How did Satan try to deceive Christ? By taking the word and twisting it, right? So you could know all the Bible knowledge in the world, but if you do not know God, it is useless, and it actually will be used to deceive you. I had a friend when I was like 17 years old. He was 19 years old, and he could belch and preach at the same time. He could belch and quote Bible verses at the same time. Does that mean when he was quoting Bible verses to me while he was belching, he was setting me free? No, it just means we were goofing off. Right? I had another friend in my early 20s. He loved to get drunk and then witness and win people to Jesus just to show his pastor father that what you did didn't matter. See, some of you don't have the experiences I had growing up as a pastor's kid. Paul's over there going, oh my, right? Paul's a pastor's kid too. Think about it. Some of it, how many of you think that the Bible is like gold dust? All you got to sprinkle it or speak it and it'll change people's lives? Anybody ever go to church like that? They think that? If you just memorize this Bible verse, you'll be different. No, you could just be dangerous. Most dangerous people in the world are people who know the Word and don't know God. I want you to understand my point. My point isn't not to read your Word, not to study your Word. You should read and study your Word to know God. Don't read your Word and study your Word to gain what? Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. It's dangerous. Because you will lean on your own understanding, in all your ways submit to Him, and He will direct your paths. Let Him direct your paths, not you and what you know about the Bible. Okay. This is really important because once we get to the next slide, if you can't drop your understanding and your knowledge and your intellect, if you can't get rid of it, then you can't be used of God. I can't tell you how many people I know are smarter than me and God doesn't use them. And they're in ministry, but God doesn't use them. Oh, they're smart, but God doesn't really use them to set people free. They're pastoring a church. What do you mean? What's pastoring a church? They're not pastoring a church, they're pasturing. Meaning all the people are out to pasture, and every Sunday they go and they lay the grass out so everybody can eat. That's not pastoring, that's pasturing. How was it? Right? Let's focus on obey here. So when the children of Israel spied on the promised land, they all knew God's promise or their will for them, right? They all knew what the promise was, right? That God was going to give them this land. With their understanding, they decided what God had planned couldn't be accomplished. Anybody ever done that? God told you something, He showed it to you, and then you decided He couldn't do it. Especially through you. They determined to do something other than what God had stated. So first they came to an understanding, their own understanding that God couldn't do it. Then they disobeyed. They disobeyed by figuring out something else to do. Just because you didn't, delayed obedience and failure to obey is still disobedience. Okay? So let me tell you, if God told you to go downstairs after church and clean the bathrooms, and you don't clean the bathrooms, but you go downstairs and you take the trash out, you're still disobedient. Just because you found something else to do that you like, that is easier for you to do, that you think you can do, okay, doesn't mean you're still being obedient. You're still being disobedient. Yeah. If God tells you to go clean the bathroom after church and you're like, well, I got things to do, I'll do it right before I go to bed. Delayed obedience is what? Disobedience. So let me give you an example. So let's say you get your son, right? And he's staying with you for the summer, right? And you say, take the trash out. And then he goes, I'll get that right before I go to bed. And it's in the morning. Would that make you angry? Yes, it would. Yes, see, that's disobedience. How many of us, God told us to do something and we tell Him when and how? So God tells us what to do, and normally when He tells us what to do, He's telling us to do it now, right? But not always, and then we decide, well, I don't want to do it now, I'll do it later. That's still disobedience, okay? But in this particular situation, they knew what God's will was. They went over and God showed them his will. They knew it was God. They believed, but then they came to an understanding that they couldn't do it. And once they relied on their understanding, then they chose not to do what God said. It's very important that you understand that before they chose, they were thinking. Before they chose, I like the word determines, because this is a word that people are like, well, what's wrong with making determinations? Well, who made you that person to determine? Just think about this. So God brought them out of Egypt. Now you guys realize it was like 40 days. 40 days prior to them going over to the promised land to spy it out. They were in Egypt slaves. God did incredible things to set them free from Egypt. So this wasn't like years. God even opened the sea and swallowed up the enemy's army on them to let them get through to go to the promised land. This was just a few weeks prior. Then they get to the promised land. God says, send out some spies. And they send out spies. And they go over there and they gather the information. And they all agree on the information they gathered. The facts were not in dispute. Do you understand this? The facts were not in dispute. What was the problem? Some decided what God could and couldn't do. Some believed on the Lord. I just want you to think about that. Once they were deciding what God could and couldn't do, then they made a determination and decided they needed to do something other than what God stated because of what they thought. Hold on a second. You guys go ahead and do whatever you're doing so we make sure everybody gets gum before we continue on. I'm just learning from you, Krista. Anyways, about the drama, right? Can you get dramatic? Is this obedience or disobedience? When you determine to do something other than what God stated because you're afraid, is it obedience or disobedience? It's disobedient. So here's the little thing here's the pathway. Here's the thing that I want you to grab a hold of today. And I really want you to think about this. God makes an opportunity for us to display or practice our love through obedience. God always sets up a scenario for us to practice or display our obedience and love for God. He always does it by giving us a promise, showing us the promise, and then letting us see things that mess with our emotions. Understanding. How many of you ever thought, God, why did you bring them to the river and tell them to stop and then send 12 spies? Why didn't you just take them across the river? They weren't going over to spy out the land for strategic ability. They weren't going to conquer the inhabitants of the land because of their strategy. I mean, what strategy is walking around a city for 7 days and then crying out loud to take the land? They weren't going over to spy out the land for strategic purposes. God, why did you tell them to stop and go look? Could it be that God knew who they were? Could it be that God was trying to give them the opportunity to trust in Him instead of them? what we find on a consistent basis is this is what God does to us. Consistently, God stops us and says, look at what I promised you. And then we see all the reasons he can't. We see all the reasons why we can't. He does that all the time. Anybody ever have God do that to you? Some of you, God stops you at the river and you just plow through and drown in the river because you refuse to take orders. It's like, God, I got this momentum going. Why are you asking me to stop? You don't know what you're doing. And then you just plow into the river and you drown. And as you're drowning, you cry out, God, why? It's like, because I told you to stop. We used to have a person in the program who helped minister. They graduated and helped minister in the program, and they used to say this all the time. The key word of being a disciple is the evil S word. It's a 6-letter S word. Submit. As a matter of fact, you can't serve God if you won't embrace submitting. Number one, you have to submit to God. This is a perfect example. Look. We have man's fear and man's doubt, but we can have man's understanding. These are all man's understanding. And we can have fear and doubt and arrogance and pride and selfishness. And we can have them all listed here, right? And the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding. We have to submit to God. God lets all of these things happen. God let them go over to the land and see the giants. He wanted them to go over and feel like grasshoppers. Well, why would he do that? He was strumming your pain with his finger, seeing if you would trust it. Strumming your pain with his finger, seeing if you love him or you. What? I want you to, why would God send them over there and they would have to take 2 men to carry back a cluster of grapes because they were so big? And they would see these humongous giants. And they would see these huge cities. Why would he let them go over there and be filled with fear? Now, here's the thing. I'm talking from the wrong perspective. What do you mean? Well, you could be like Caleb and Joshua. God sent us over there so he could see how awesome his hand is going to be when he destroys these people and we take these cities. He sent us over there so we could be so excited about all the good things he's going to give us and all the power and might he's going to have when we take this land in his name. Now, how many of you guys have ever been stricken with fear and doubt? And isn't that exactly how it is? If you will believe on God, it would excite you. But if you believe on your understanding, it will depress you. Right? It will bring doubt and fear. Right? Can't tell you how many times people come to me and go, I'm just so concerned about that person. Well, why? Why are you concerned about them? Well, because, well, I just see it as, look how awesome it's going to be when God does what he said he was going to do. I can either lean on our understanding of knowledge as humans, or I can believe and lean on what God says. Now, can anybody explain to me why you would lean on what man thinks and knows? Does anybody know any time where it benefited anybody? Carissa says recipes. We can see where her mind is. It's all about food, right? It's all about. So can anybody tell me when when you're stricken with fear and you're standing in the promise of God and you're stricken with fear and you're about to just stop because you don't think God could do it? What good has ever come of it? You save face because you don't want to be embarrassed in believing in God and it not happening? Well, that just means you didn't believe in God in the first place. That just means you thought you had a back door open somewhere, and if God didn't work out, it was going to look bad on you. God gave me a vision last night. It was hilarious. I've had about 6 people this week come to me, all concerned about these people, and I'm like, God can do anything. Right? And this is totally at a different time, different place. Wasn't even thinking about it. And God was like, just watch. Just watch. Those people that everybody's concerned about, they're going to blow all of us away. We're just going to sit there and go, wow. Because people are leaning on their own understanding, right? Right? Listen, I've been ministering way too long. I went through that about 10, 15 years in the ministry where I thought I knew. And I would counsel people with, I've been doing this. Now I'm just like, I don't have a clue, dude. Whatever. Because I can't tell you how many times with my intellect and understanding and experience and knowledge of the Word of God, I would apply my understanding and God would be like, you're an idiot. And then he would just do his thing. He would do his thing. And I would just sit there and go, no way. Right? Let me say it to you like this. After 30 years of ministry, I can count on one hand all the really good, awesome people that it made sense would do ministry that are still doing it. All the people that had the skill, had the intellect, had the understanding, had the talent. I can count them on one hand that I know are still doing ministry. But I have completely lost track of how many people there's no way they should ever be able to do the things that God is having them do, and they are still doing it. I just go, well, I guess the only thing that matters is if you obey. The only thing that matters is if you believe and obey, then it'll work. If you don't, it won't. It doesn't matter how many times you screw up. It doesn't matter how many times you fumble. None of that matters. It doesn't matter how many times, some of you can say, thank you, Jesus. It doesn't matter how many times you completely walk away from God and completely serve yourself and find yourself in the middle of your own disaster and finally turn back. It doesn't matter how many times. If you continue to believe and continue to seek God, God will do it. Do not trust your own understanding. Do not trust it. I truly believe God made them stop at the Jordan River and sent 12 spies just to set up this scenario. Do you know why I believe that? Because he does it all the time. I'll give you another example. Jesus went into Jerusalem, right? And they, Palm Sunday's coming up, right? And they all were cheering on and screaming and telling him how awesome he was. And it was the example of the kingdom of God, right? God was entering, and then they came up with their own understanding, right? And then when he died on the cross, they denied him. Now, how long was it before they were parading him through the streets, singing Hosanna, till he killed him on the cross? 5 days. And then it was the 6th day that they said, I don't know who he is. And the reason why they said, I don't know who he is because of their understanding. God showed them the promise. He was entering into the promise. And then they began to think with their understanding because of what they saw and what was happening, instead of believing. They're at the fire late at night. And they're like, hey, didn't you used to hang out with that guy named Jesus? Oh, no, I don't know who you're talking about. Well, that wasn't me. I don't know him. I mean, I've heard of him, but I don't know. A couple minutes later, I'm pretty sure it was you. Oh, no, it wasn't me. That's no different than being at the Jordan and the 12 spies come by and they tell you, well, the people are huge and they have these fortified cities and I just don't know if we could do it. Next thing you know, they're walking in their own understanding, denying that that's the promised land. Next thing you know, you're at the campfire denying that you knew the Son of God who's going to bring the promise. Anybody ever been there? God shows you something. God starts to do it. He gives you a taste of it. And then he lets you have these things. Now, why would he do that? And this is what I want you to understand. He's doing it by design. Some of you that are older, you can appreciate this, but when your children are younger, you hold on to them, you love them, you protect them, you watch their every move, and then one day you have to let them go. And you pray and you hope they make the right choices. And you're stricken with fear that you didn't do this, and you should have done this, and you should have done that, and you didn't do this, and you know what I mean? I liken this scenario right here to God going, okay, choose. Over here it's scary. Over here it's comfortable. It seems impossible. This promise I showed you seems impossible. You just choose what you want. See, I look at it as a beautiful thing. I look at this scenario he sets up as something that's so awesome. Because when that child chooses right, and you weren't there making them choose. And listen, some of you aren't old enough to experience this. But when they choose wrong, and they choose wrong, and they choose wrong, and they finally choose right, it doesn't really matter how long it took. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Some of the older people are like, yes. Some of the younger people are like, really? Yeah. See, you have to believe. See, the belief that you have to have when they're choosing wrong is the same belief you have to have when you're in the land and you're stricken with fear of the greatness of the city that you're looking at. You have to continue to believe to see the promise. The one thing you don't want to do is begin to determine and make decisions based on your fear. That'll get you killed. So, I want to go through these little things here. Maybe somebody back there messing with me. Put the clicker over on the screen and click it. I'm having faith, brother. Click it. Now see how that works? A little basic. First of all, God promises. Okay? Then he gives us battles or choices. Then he shows us the way. So God promised, and then he gave us battles and choices. And then he shows us the way. He shows, anybody ever know what I'm talking about? He shows you. He reveals to you, I can. But the fears don't go away, and the doubts don't go away, and the pride doesn't go away, and the arrogance don't go away, right? What you think doesn't go away. How many of you guys ever prayed that he would just make it go away? Well, then you wouldn't get to choose. The beauty of this is your choice. The awesomeness of God is that he gives you a choice. Why are you praying that he takes your choices away? What you really should be praying is, God, help my selfishness. Help my pride, that I would choose what I think and feel over what you said. Because isn't that what they did? They chose what they thought and felt over what God said. They felt like they were grasshoppers. They felt like those people were too big. They felt like there's no way it could happen. And so they made a decision based on what they felt and what they knew or their understanding. Then God encourages us to follow him through love. So here we are, and we're sitting there looking at all these other things, and he's like, come over here, buddy. Come over here. Anybody remember those times where he's like, come over here. Come on. Then he tarries with us when we look away. Whew, thank God. So it's almost inevitable that we somewhere trust our understanding, right? And he'll wait and go, well, let me know when you're done. God just told me to say something. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it's for. It's not for anybody in particular. I'm just going to say it. I know a lot of you can relate. You were waiting for God to bring you the right person, right? And then you wouldn't wait any longer, so you just chose. And then guess what? Guess what? God just waited around till you came to the conclusion you were wrong. Anybody ever been there? Some of you figured out faster than others, right, Nick? Oh, yes, sir, buddy. Yes, sir. And God just tarries with us as we look away. I love this. I love saying this, people. Are you done yet? God just shows up every once in a while. It's like, hey, you done yet? I'm waiting. All of this is for the opportunity to experience his glory with him. He wants you to go with him to experience his glory. Not yours, not your understanding, not what you think you can figure out. None of that. He wants you to remain in him and stay with him and love him. And he wants you to have to choose to do it. That's the beauty of it. We all have this opportunity. What promises have God revealed to you? What promises has he revealed to you personally? What opportunities has he given you to obey? Because he always gives us this little silly opportunity to obey. Have you taken it? Are you remaining in it? Or do you do that? This is what we do. I believe in you, Jesus. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. Oh, yeah, look at that. That's not believing in him. This is believing in him. Yeah, you gotta wiggle your butt a little bit like he does when he shoots a basket. We're shooting baskets with Jenkins the other day, and every time he shot, he went. We were like, what is that, dude? It's just hilarious. It was like, wow. You have to just jump in and go. What opportunities has he given you to obey him? Have you taken them? How has your mind and experiences come against the plan that God showed you? Listen, this week we had this really cool thing happen. And it's only cool for some of us. And what I mean by that is some of us really get how cool it is, and some of us don't. And the reason why, it's not because we're special, it's because some of us have been around longer, and some of us haven't. But this week, we had this opportunity where a certain person who had helped us start the church, who had been a part of the church, and who had, for a lack of better words, just got distracted by her own understanding and fell away. She was forced to come into this place and meet with my assistant because we're doing business with each other and her boss. And so she came in, and Debbie so beautifully said, "Would you like me to show you around?" And if you know anything about Debbie, she's charming, and she could be the cute little girl, and that's what she was playing. Was, let me show you around. You gotta see this, you know. And one of the things that God had given, one of the visions, one of the promises, one of the unique personal promises that God had given this person when they were here as a young woman, because this is 20 years ago, okay, has been fulfilled here, except without her. And Debbie knew that. A little bit, just a little bit. So she took her into the prayer room, and she said, "I got to show you this room." And she just stood there and went, "Oh." Because she's not having the promise. The promise, listen, although this promise that God gives you is unique to you, he's going to do it. With or without you. He's going to do it. And that tarrying, so that day, God was like, "Are you done yet? Would you like to come to the promise?" Now, I want you to grab a hold of that. Grab a hold of it. Because so many times we put silly human limitations on our promises. We think that our promises have to do with time. Time is irrelevant to God. completely, that's a you thing. What if the promise that God made you, he already intended for you to be in? Like this woman. It's a promise that God gave her. She doesn't even go to church anymore. She believes, but she doesn't even go to church anymore. It's a promise that she believed in, but she chose with her understanding not to remain to experience the promise. And so here the promise is, boom, it's right there. The promise is there, it's happening, it's waiting for her to experience it, except she refuses to stop leaning on her understanding. How long did you meet with her? An hour and a half? Better got my money's worth, Debbie. Anyways, I'm joking. It's funny. But she met, an hour and a half later, she's walking her through the whole building. She walks into the sanctuary and she goes, oh my. Like, because visions that God had showed her have happened without her. And this is the beauty of living in the age of Christ instead of the age of the law. See, in the Old Testament, the children of Israel, they were living in the age of the law. Moses screwed up and doubted God and refused to obey God the way God told him to. So Moses had to stand on a mountain and watch his people go to the promised land. And so if we were in the Old Testament, that woman, the only thing she had the opportunity to experience was us being in the promised land and her not being. But because we live in the age of Christ, in the age of grace, God brought her in here and said, you want to join? Here's your promise. You want it? Now, how many of you, because this is what this poor woman's going through right now. How many of you, God has done that to you? He has brought you full circle and put you right in front of your promise and said, here it is, just like I told you. And the only thing you have to do is humble yourself and submit. And you still are thinking about it. You're still thinking about it. Because that's what she's, well. You ever have the list of pros and cons? You ever put them on a piece of paper, or at least you have them in your brain, right? Why does what you think have anything to do with your obedience to God? Huh? Why is what you're experiencing having anything to do with your obedience to God? What kind of faith and belief in God do you think they had to have to walk around Jericho and blow trumpets? I mean, I wish I was in Jericho when they were doing that. There's so many jokes you could tell to your buddies inside of Jericho about the stupid idiots outside walking around thinking their God is going to knock this wall down that you're standing on. What kind of faith did you have to have? What kind of disregard for your understanding and your fear and your doubt did you have to have? Disregard for your understanding, your fear, and your doubt. Do you understand that probably the majority of human beings in America, if they heard that statement right there, would say, I'm crazy? You need to disregard your fears and your doubts and your understanding in order to experience God. The Bible shows us that time and time again. I love it. People are like, they're crazy. That person's crazy. You should be quiet. Because every time God told people to do something in the Bible, it was crazy. Now, there are crazy people out there, but I'm not calling them crazy. I'm not. We had a crazy person here in the program a couple weeks ago. They showed up, they were crazy. Toot, 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 toot. I'm still not going to say they're not of God. Why? Because God uses crazy people all the time. Because all the smart people can't get rid of their understanding. How are you remaining in his path with obedience? How are you doing it? So many people that say they don't need the body of Christ. Really? You don't need other people getting you out of your head? Right? You don't need that? Because your mind has never caught you and took you captive and took you down a rabbit hole? Never? Really? If you could say no to that, then that just means you don't have a mind. You did too many drugs, smoking too much meth. Sarah's like, it was crack, thank you. It's not meth. Learn the difference. I don't need to, Sarah. So it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Sort of loops them all together there. So let me ask you, what is it that God told you to do? What is the promise that he has for you? What is it? Could it be a family? Could it be a spouse? Could it be a decent life? Let's turn it around and not have it be about yourself. Could it be being used of him to bless people? You know, I was sharing with Coach McCants the other day, and he made people mad in the community because he was demanding that they give him a rec center in downtown Marion. How many years ago? 15 years ago? And why did you demand it? Because you felt like that's what God wanted to do. And guess what? He did. He never does it the way we think he's going to. He never does. But his promises are yes and amen. It's going to happen. He doesn't need you to figure it out. He needs you to join him. He needs you to say yes when everything else in your heart and mind says no. No, that's what he wanted this building, and he was mad that they wouldn't give, and they gave him some piece of junk building and they didn't want. They could have got this building. The city could have grabbed this building and like that. They didn't want to. But now God gave you this building anyways. God's going to do what he said he's going to do. He wants you to be a part of it. But that's up to you. That's up to you. Let's learn to obey. And the key to obedience is a disregard for your understanding. So I want you to think about it. I'm not talking about obedience to your pastor or to the church. We're not a cult around here, trust me. If you don't believe that, just come and you can see all the inner workings of the church. You'll be like, no way, dude, you people are crazy. Because we're not organized, we have no clue what's going on. Okay? You need to obey God regardless of your understanding. I don't know what God told you to do. I don't even want to say I do. Even when I think God shows me what he wants you to do, I still don't want to tell you. Because I don't want to be that guy. Okay? Don't throw a simple godly principle out because the enemy has convinced you it's evil. Okay? It's like, those women who they married some nasty, horrible human being and took advantage of them for 20 years and absolutely beat them and abused them and everything, and then they decide they're going to be a lesbian. Well, that's just stupid. Okay? That's like the dumbest thing you ever heard of in your life. Why? Because just because you got with one stupid guy does not mean all men are evil. I love it when those women have boys. And you look at them and go, so is your son evil? No. Well, how you're acting makes it seem that way. Right? Don't throw, an old saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Okay? This is just an old silly saying. The young people under 30 are like, what in the world is he talking about, I had to look it up, what it really meant, but I remember hearing my parents and grandparents saying it. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, dude. Just because people have taken advantage of other people being obedient despite their understanding doesn't mean you don't apply that to God. Does that make sense? You don't just throw that principle out. It's a godly principle. You have to get rid of your understanding if you're going to serve God. I just want you to think about this. So, God says, I'm going to kill all the firstborn. Every firstborn in the land, I'm going to come by, and the angel of death is going to come by your house and kill the firstborn in your house. Unless you kill your nicest sheep and put the blood on the doorpost. Now that's just stupid. Don't you understand? I only have one sheep. What am I going to do? You're going to eat it, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And in order to obey God, you had to get rid of your understanding. By nightfall, I'd be the guy. I'd be the guy with my sheep, standing there, listening to see if anybody's crying out. Oh, here comes the angel of death. He was real. Right? Right? Send your son, your oldest son, to the neighbor's house. Send him away. Hey, why don't you go to 50 miles away from here, son? Because this whole thing that God's talking about might not be, it might be real, but I don't want to ruin a good sheep, right? Right? Have you ever done that? What God's saying might be true, so I just want to be a little bit prepared, but I'm not going to really believe. You're going to be really disappointed that night when your son dies. Okay? God wants you to experience all he has for you. That is his plan. His plan is also to let you experience the fear and doubt so you have a pathway to experience loving him. Get rid of it. Stop understanding. Stop seeking. How many of you guys ever pray for a sign? God, just give me a sign. Do you know what the Bible says about that? It's evil. What do you need a sign to believe in God for? Go ahead and believe. He'll give you a sign you're right, but he ain't going to give you a sign to get you to believe, because then he's validating your understanding. then you're not taking the path to love him. Anybody ever got a sign? Was it before or after you believed? It's normally before, after you believe. You believe, then God gives you a sign that you're doing the right thing. God's not going to convince you. I get people all the time. If you got to convince somebody to serve Jesus, guess what? It wasn't the Holy Spirit. Yeah, it wasn't the Holy Ghost, it was the Holy Goat. The Holy Goat of understanding. You know that goat? Nah. She is the goat. Oh. Whoa, the bloom is off the rose. They got married, what, November, October? The bloom is off the rose. Ooh. January, yeah. Arabelle and Paul got married in October. I'm so confused. I know I did the ceremony. I'm so confused. Listen. I've lost the room. I've lost it. Make a commitment today to go to the promised land with God. Make a commitment to not rely on your understanding. I want you to experience all God has for you. I don't want to have to bring you into the building and show you the promised land that God promised you that you have not experienced. Please, let's pray. Lord, I thank you for today. I thank you for your word. I thank you for challenging us to get outside of ourselves and our understanding so we can just enjoy this pathway that you've created for us to experience love and experience you. God, I want to experience the land that you have for me. I know everyone in this room, they want to experience the land that you have for them. Help us to put aside our understanding and our knowledge and our experiences and just run after you with all our hearts. Putting our faith and our trust in you. Seeing all the fears and the doubts as just how awesome your goodness is going to be instead of how it couldn't happen. Help us to stay and keep our eyes focused upon you and you alone. Lord, we give you all the glory and the praise that's due unto you today. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great day, folks. It's supposed to be beautiful.